Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and that cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Danielle, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you now. I'm excited to get some insights into your career from performing all the way up to what you do now. So you're a singer, a performer, speaker, voice and leadership coach. But I'd like to start at the very beginning. Can you tell us your very earliest musical memory?
Wow. I don't know. I guess besides singing in my, lounge room as a kid to my mum's ABBA and Barbara Streisand albums, I would have to say, through high school, I got so involved with music and the musicals and things like that, and it's just really found my passion there. I first discovered I was a singer really on a trip overseas. So I have some relatives in Italy, actually.
Oh.
And my cousin was in the church choir there, and she ran the choir, and she would bring me along to the practice, and I would just be singing with them. And they all sort of turned around to me and said, like, whoa, you can actually sing, you've got a good voice. And that's when I realized. At the time I was only about 12 or 13 years old. So when I came back from that, I just started, joining in at things at school, really. And I think that's a great place to start. I'm really glad that I threw myself into that. And then things just progressed after that. I knew I wanted to pursue music or performing in some way. I wasn't quite sure how. So, I just put myself out there as a freelance singer and just, started getting as many gigs as I could. Most of them were probably, friends who booked me for their events and things like that. But soon enough, I took off. I started joining some cover bands, got my confidence up in really, working with an audience, and just became quite established as a freelance singer here in Melbourne. I then started producing some one-woman shows. I did, things that sort of really interested me, like, tribute to Barbara Streisand. Of course, I had to do that. And I knew all the repertoire. And, I did sort of Broadway tribute shows and things like that. And then eventually just my original music. And then, it was great. I just developed a little bit of a momentum, a reputation, and I started to do, a lot of the major television events here in Australia. We have something called Carols by Candlelight, which is probably the biggest television event, live television event here in Australia. And that's a Christmas Eve thing. And that was wonderful. That was in front of about 3 million people viewing live and 30,000 people in the actual audience, and 3 million across, television sets, back in those days. And and then that led to some other big concert events too, and eventually got myself into some musical theatre, and I did the London Palladium Sound of Music when it came to Australia. And so it's been quite varied. But that's where it's at. And all along I've been recording some music along the way, and doing some writing and releasing some songs there too.
Yeah. And I'm always intrigued by how performers find their style and their voice. What makes a guy decide he's going to be like a screaming black metal artist? So, when it comes to you, how did you find your style and your voice? What decided that you were going to be the type of artist you are?
Actually, that's what I really struggled with. As you can see just from what I've told you, it was quite varied what I was interested in. And I think that was what I struggled with most of my singing career, that people really wanted to put you in a box, and it was like, oh wow, if you're doing musical theater, then you can't be a pop singer, and vice versa. And maybe things have changed a little bit now, but over the last decade or two, that's pretty much where it was at. I would audition for musical theater, and they would say, sometimes you're too polished, or you're too, like, and then I'd audition for like pop managers, and to try and get a record deal, and they'd be like, oh, you're not edgy enough, and so go back to the other way, and it's like I found it really really challenging and really confusing, and I think I don't know. I think I was just really enjoy more classic contemporary adult music, whatever that is, and and I think there wasn't a huge market for it in Australia. It seemed that that type of music was appreciated more in maybe the USA or Europe. But I think musical theatre was a real passion because I love the acting side of it as well, and I guess just naturally I can sing that quite well, so I kind of fell into that more cabaret musical theatre style for a few years there, because it just felt fun. It felt really joyful. So, but I've always kept up, recording albums and trying to get some music out there of my own as well.
Yeah, yeah. And from you mentioned that you started off joining cover bands, and then you made the leap to theatre. What was it like trying to break into theatre? It's a side of it that we don't really get to talk about too much on this show. So is it kind of similar to getting a band or a singing career off the ground?
Oh, it's a little bit different because you're not really, because you can't, it's not like you can go out there and get some gigs happening in your local pub or something like that, and really just get the momentum going. You've really got to find an agent. That can be challenging in itself, and because there's so many people competing for a small amount of shows, and so there's only so many people that the agents will take on. And then if you get yourself an agent, which I was lucky enough to get, you're just on the audition circuit, and you're just turning up for these auditions, and you're just hoping that the director sees you in that role. And often it's a case of you're too, your stature's not right. You have the most perfect voice, whatever, something like that, but you're just not the right look, or vice versa. Like, it could be you sort of got what we want, but we're not sure, if how your voice would match the other leading role or something like that. Like, there's just all these sort of things that that you're up against. And so it is quite challenging. And then some of the, you can't be in every show unless you are what's called a triple threat. So a triple threat is somebody who's excellent in singing, dancing, and acting. Now, not everybody is a triple threat. And I'm not a highly trained dancer, but I did have my acting and singing down pat. But so then I may have missed roles because I wasn't such a strong dancer for a role. So it's challenging, and if you do want to go down that musical theatre road, you do want to be quite skilled in all of those areas if possible. You'll probably get
Yeah.
more. Mhm.
Yeah, and once you start getting all this success, appearing on stage, going overseas, appearing on TV, can you walk us through what that time period in your life was like?
Oh, it was wonderful. Yeah, just it was great. There were a couple of years there where I was just, getting on all the TV shows, and it was just wonderful because these are shows that I watched growing up. I would sit there, looking at these, the TV screen in my living room, dreaming of being on those shows. And then when suddenly I was being chosen to be there, it was really wonderful, and just a really beautiful experience. And you just get so many people. Obviously, nearly the whole country is watching us, so you get so many people like so happy for you, and yeah, it's wonderful exposure. It's to to sing solo on stage in front of 30,000 people sitting in front of you, like that's not often we get that opportunity. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And plus, I had a huge choir behind me and an orchestra, like where do we ever get to do things like that? So it's really, really wonderful if you can have that type of experience. So I was very, very lucky, but I persisted a lot. I really persisted to put myself out there in a big way, to get onto those shows.
Yeah, and the podcast is called Concerts That Made Us. So I have to ask you, as a concert goer, what concerts do you think have made you?
Hmm. I love concerts. I just love concerts. I rarely miss one that comes to town. My best memory, I think, was seeing the Michael Jackson Bad tour.
Oh my
That
God.
was that was amazing. I can remember skipping school for the day, going to Olympic Park Stadium here in Melbourne and lining up and being near the front of the stage, and just this swarm of people just in the middle of the grounds in front of the stage, and people were just I can just remember girls fainting, and they're just bodies being carried across, on top of me, of these women who had just passed out, just being handed to the security guards and stuff. It was an experience, and I was always a Michael Jackson fan growing up, so that's very memorable. What else? Concerts that made me. I've seen so many that it's like something I saw as recent as Harry Styles. I think he's great. I think he's good fun. He really, really works the crowd and brings an audience that are just there really enjoy themselves and to be seen by him. Like he really connects well with his audience, and I think that's so rare. Where people really connect. But you too, Stevie Wonder.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to see Lizzo next week, so I can let you know.
that'll be a fun one, I imagine.
I think so. I think that's why I signed up for that. I think that would be a really good one. I saw Michael Bublé recently. He's great. He's great fun. He brings his great fun personality into it. I even saw Rod Stewart and Cyndi Lauper recently too, and just watching these really seasoned performers, that these songs, like Elton John, their music just keeps. There's so much meaning in it, after all of these decades, and I think they're probably the artists that move me the most when I'm at concerts. Yeah.
And when it comes to a show, from picking out the tickets to actually going, what do you look for in a show? What makes it so good that you're going to walk away saying, I'm going to remember that for a long time?
I really love it when the artists interact with the audience. Like we really see the real them. Like, I can remember when I saw Beyonce many years ago, and maybe Janet Jackson as well. That just comes to mind. And the shows were very, well produced. It was very structured. And it was an amazing, beautiful productions. But there was very little, just very natural interaction with the audience in between songs. And so I would walk away going, oh, well, that was amazing. But I never really felt like I got to really know them or see them. And I think that's a shame in live performance. I really think that, those that show us their personality and just get real with us and let us in, you know, to their inner world for a moment, that's magical, I think, for me. I tend to go and see shows where people really allow their personality out a lot more. I tend to gravitate towards those shows a little bit more now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
make the best
stories.
ones. Yeah,
Mm,
I remember years ago seeing Chris Christopherson, and
mm.
he literally just walked out on stage, picked up his guitar, and started singing. And it was, as soon as the song ends, he started another one. There was no audience interaction at all. And even though he's like a legend, it was one of the most boring concerts I've been to. You know, I'm like you. I prefer if the singer sits down on stage and starts telling a story about the next song they're going to sing or something. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, somebody who also comes to mind is Prince. So, you know how Prince was renowned for coming back at the end of his concert and just spending another hour or so just singing and performing for the audience, you know, and like that I experienced that. And even though he didn't talk an awful lot and you know, it's just like he was just there for us. It was just like, I'm just going to sing all night if I have to for you guys, you know? And it was like, it was unbelievable. I felt like I was in his, you know, private space, you know, and he was just playing for us unscripted, you know, and it was, you know, that's probably another one that comes to mind that you know, really impacted me.
Hmm.
Mm.
And we'll jump back to your own performances then. Out of all the shows you've done, is there one that sticks in your mind as maybe the most perfect experience you had?
Mm. Wow, that's a really tough one. Um, Look, some of those television experiences were really, really, really good, really beautiful experiences. I got to really showcase my voice in a way that I want to, like really sing big epic songs, and you know that's what I love to do. And so I think having the opportunity to do that was was really amazing, and then to walk off the stage and know that I really felt like, yeah, that was a good performance. You know, I the it was, you know, pretty amazing even back then that you know, I wasn't fully focused on how big the situations were, but it was more, I just felt like I was meant to be there. Like I just knew in my heart that, you know, this was, I just belonged on that stage. And so just felt, I just have this memory of just feeling so comfortable and so grateful for, you know, this amazing opportunity, and to be able to showcase me in the way I want to. I think if we can be seen and heard in the way we want to as artists, that's really important. And those sort of opportunities allowed me to do that. And even my very first cabaret show, which was that tribute to Streisand, um, you know, I just wrote that show. Like I just sat down and wrote that so quickly. And I think it, you know, it was a great experience for me because I didn't even know I was, you know, capable of producing a one woman show, you know, and I just kind of went out on a limb, booked a theater and ran it for a while and had great audiences, and you know, so just taking risks and seeing them pay off. And I think it's because I'm doing what I'm good at. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sticking with where my heart is in performing rather than trying to be what I'm not. And I think that's when it's worked well for me. I've been happy with those type of performances.
Yeah. You know, the one woman shows then, how do they compare to the larger productions?
Well, it's just 100% me. So so it's just me on the stage, and you know, sometimes I would just have me and a piano player, you know, and or a small band, and it was just so intimate, you know, really just me telling stories and then singing and you know the whole attention was sort of on me, whereas when you're in those sort of bigger productions, you're a part of a team, you know, and but they're wonderful experiences, you know, to have been, you know, in even The Sound of Music, which was another dream come true, because, you know, growing up, we loved watching that movie and singing all of those songs, and to be in such a, you know, professional show with a lot of leading musical theatre artists here in Australia, that was a wonderful learning experience, because the cast was full of very, very seasoned performers, and you can learn a lot, you know, working with people like that. And that's what I really loved about that particular show, you know, just learning from people who've been doing this for a long time and very successful.
Yeah. And you know, when it comes to live performances and theatre, not everything always goes according to plan. So, you know, on those nights where things maybe started to fall apart a bit, how did you overcome them?
I just go with it, because I just think, you know, look, things are out of our control and we can't help it. And you know, I was doing a new show, and I was running a test version of it. And, you know, we had been there in the afternoon, we had sound checked the mics and everything. And then as soon as the show started, there was just some kind of feedback issue or something going on with the microphone.
Oh.
I was just like crackling, you know, and I literally just had to stop the show. Like, I literally, after I was looking around sort of as I'm performing, you know, like just kind of, because, you know, I just had to dive straight into this performance, and I was kind of looking around thinking, surely someone's going to come and help me out here. And I, you know, I think no one really knew what to do. And so I literally just went, I'm just going to stop the show right here and get this sorted out, you know. And that was, you know, I think that's probably the only time something really major like that's happened to me. And, you know, it was luckily it was just the test run of the actual show. But even if it was the main one, you know, I think your audiences are forgiving, and, you know, just go with it, you know. Don't, I guess I just don't expect things to go perfectly. So, you know, if you reduce your expectations, then when things do go wrong, you know, you're not going to get so thrown by it or so frazzled by it. So, yeah, just, you know, keeping it real, keep things as real as you can, I think.
Yeah, good advice there. And I always ask my guests what their pre-show and post-show ritual is before going on stage. You know, you hear these stories of these rock guys who maybe down a gallon of vodka before going on stage, or even bands that maybe say a prayer before going on stage to psych themselves up and then wind down afterwards. How did you approach it? Did you have any rituals before you'd walk out on stage?
Yes, I always have, and I still do. So I would pray, definitely, you know, just have that little prayer. You know, I just think that's always nice to just tune into and put out there. Definitely just, I don't eat much. So don't, you know, make sure I don't have much food in my stomach. I'm very well hydrated, so plenty of water. Unfortunately, no bottles of vodka or whatever you said, because you know, I think, yeah, that's just not my way. And in fact, I find alcohol so drying on my throat that it's enough to make me just go, no, I'm just not going to bother with that. And I think, yeah, I think I don't really need to have something to make me loosen up. Oh, look, maybe it wouldn't hurt, you know, but I never really felt like you know, I want to get up on that stage and you know, be intoxicated. It's just never been something that I'm interested in. If it was a relaxed gig, I might have, I might do it with have a few drinks or something beforehand, but it wouldn't be a serious gig. It wouldn't be an important show or anything like that. So it's just vocal warm up, hydration, and then there's something else that I do more recently, which is an embodiment exercise that I've learned to really ground myself in my body, which which is more in line with the coaching side of what I do. And there's what I have found is the trick is to really get out of your head, because if you're in your head, and what I mean by that, like worrying about it, who's in the audience, did I sell enough tickets? When I was singing those songs today, it just wasn't feeling great, or when you've got all this stuff in your head. I hope everyone likes it. I hope this goes well.
Questions.
Yeah, like all these kind of thoughts that are going through our head. And if we're in that part of ourselves, like we're really bringing our focus to that. And then you think about that, you walk up onto the stage and you're in that state. You're very disconnected, from what I call like the essence or the soul of yourself. And that's where we perform from, that's where we create from, the true essence and the soul of ourselves, like the love of it, all of that, the part of us that like me as a little kid was dreaming about being on the stage one day, or that part of me that just loves singing, or just that's the part that we want to be focused on. And what I have found in these embodiment practices that I now teach is if you can get really still and present and just spend a couple of minutes just getting in your body. And what I mean by that is just kind of just tuning into certain parts of the body. So you could use your heart, or you're sort of even down in your belly, because we hold a lot of emotions in this part of ourselves, and we tune into that. And you just spend a little bit of time almost kind of meditating on it, just closing your eyes and breathing. And you can start to feel an energy sort of grounding you, and you start to move away from those thoughts that are ticking over. And then you leave your attention in your body, and then you kind of walk up onto the stage, and there's a whole different energy within you and around you that you can tap into this. Everyone's got this ability. And I've been using that mostly in the last couple of years, and I get my clients to do that as well. And something happens. It's like even the singing instrument, like the vocal instrument, just lines up so much better. Like there's something just much more fluid about it. There's much more connection to a deeper part of ourselves, and there's less tension in the throat or the chest, or like there's less tension in our mind, and everything just opens up better and lines up better. And so even this instrument that's functioning to try to produce great sound works so much better, but with less effort. And that was a really important shift for me, because having been a singing coach as well for so many years through my whole career, it was very, technique based. And, that's how we were trained. Just learning how to get your technique really on track and dealing with just the physical aspects of it. But there's this whole other side of us, the emotional side, even the energetic side. And we more so need to be tuned into that. And when we can really cultivate that, then that's when these really super powerful performances start to happen. And that's I've experimented with that a lot since I've been learning this stuff, and it works wonderfully.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to hearing about what you do now, but I have one final question about the performance side of it. How do you go about creating and working on how you build a connection with the audience?
Well, my my belief is that if you connect with yourself, if you really connect with a deeper part of yourself, the vulnerable side of yourself, the emotional side of yourself, and you're singing from that place or performing from that place, or even dancing or acting, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but you're just performing from that place. And athletes do this too, and speakers do this. Like these are tools anybody can use. When you really connect in with a deeper part of yourself, or the emotional vulnerable points of yourself, we tend to, like, the mask that we tend to wear, this kind of invisible mask that we wear, which is just natural, it just kind of melts away, and then that just allows the audience into our world, and that allows me to project that out onto the audience. And when we have that energetic exchange, they can feel that energetically or emotionally, then that's when we truly connect. So, and I guess that's why I love those artists, as we were speaking earlier, in concerts, that's exactly what I'm talking about. They open up and let us into their real world, or their vulnerable world. And I think that's the most powerful way to connect with audiences. Just be truthful, just be open, just
Be yourself.
Yeah. Be yourself, be honest, just be natural. Let us see, those parts that aren't always easy to share with people. And I think you'll just have incredible followers if you do that. Incredible followers.
Definitely. And nowadays you focus on the coaching side, and you help others discover their talents and their potential. What made you choose to go into that line of work?
Yeah, well, I always had the singing coaching business as well, so I had run that simultaneously with my performance career. And what I found is that I was working with a lot of people who wanted to sing or perform, and they had great voices, like they had really great potential, or just natural ability, or they worked really hard on their vocal technique, and so they were really good, but there would be a certain point that they would allow themselves to go to. And then when I sort of pressed them or probed them, to go deeper, there would be like a like shutdown, or even physically, you could see their body freezing up, their face would turn red, you could see like the veins in their necks, or you can feel their heart beating, like it's like the body just puts up this armor. And that would be more so when if I would be trying to get them to connect in a more vulnerable way or emotionally with themselves or with the song. And for some people that's really, really hard. It's really hard because we don't want to go there for whatever reason, and then also, just those who were really wanting to get on the stage, but they just would say no. Like I would try to organize performances for them to be on the stage, and they would just be like, oh, no, no way. There's no way I'm getting on the stage,
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, and these are great singers, and I just was baffled, And so I thought I wanted to know how to help them more. And I think, I'm not a psychologist, or anything like that. So I didn't really know how to help them, move through those internal blocks. But I knew that they were, that the key to their success was getting through those blocks, that they would find real joy if they could actually have the courage to do what I was asking them. And so I started just on that journey of exploring it. And so I went into a lot of personal development training, but I was also just doing it for myself because I also was starting to feel a little bit of I'd lost my mojo a little bit for performing.
Right.
You know, I myself had a few things happen in my life. There was, my mother had passed away at that stage, and it was a lot. There was just a lot of sort of grief, sort of stuff in my heart, and so I just kind of started to just pull back and shut down a little, and just wasn't. I was in a stuck place myself, and I think also I'd had a lot of great success, and then I was kind of in a place of, and now where do I go? I don't know what else to do now. I've tried it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I went on that journey for myself as well. And then I started to discover all these wonderful tools about how we store, so many emotional blockages within us. And I could see that that was a big thing for me to really resolve a lot of that grief. And then I started to realize, oh, there's other things about me. Like I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So sometimes, I will not complete a project. If I was recording my album, would take for ages, because I was such a perfectionist, and I started to see these things within myself, how I was holding myself back, in those types of ways. And I just understood. I learned how to go through the emotional layers of my own body. And so therefore when I had those tools, I was able to help my clients move through those emotional layers to get to the core reason as to why they were feeling so trapped or so blocked. And so it just happened so naturally that my coaching evolved into this more, personal growth, and, even I guess some spiritual growth, and just helping people really step into their full potential, whatever that means for them. So I also work with anybody really, because it's not just singers and performers, but this message is universal, where people have so many wonderful gifts and talents and they don't even know it, or they know it, but they've never allowed themselves to express it, or they let themselves express it to a certain point, but then, they don't go public with it, or those sorts of things. Or they're trying so hard, they're working really hard at putting themselves out there, but there's these blocks which they don't realize are just sort of energetically kind of keeping the brakes on in some way, and so helping them just build that self-awareness around that. So really help them break free. So I guess, and then I started to break free, from my blocks. And so it was just all happened really naturally. And so it was just easy for me to be able to incorporate that into my training. And that's where the focus has been the last couple of years. And I also teach something called, presence, like how to really be in your energetic, powerful presence, can feel the energy. And that's something that, a lot of performers, or speakers or anybody, putting themselves out there find really helpful, because they're aware of the impact they're having in the room and able to use these tools to control it. So, when you can feel someone's energy as they walk in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. And so when you can understand your energy that you're putting out there, and sometimes your energy might be playing a bit too small, like you're sort of a little bit of a shrunken version of yourself,
Yeah.
Think about it. A lot of artists are like that, they're just kind of, they've got this amazing talent, but they're just kind of a little bit, keep it small, and don't, they don't want to make themselves bigger, in a way. So it's learning just how to work through a lot of that stuff. And yeah, so that's where it's been the last couple of years. And it's been pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds it. It sounds it. And typically, I suppose there's no established time frame, but say there's someone who's very shy and, in themselves. How long would it take for you to make them into, well, not make them into, but how long would it take for them to, when they walk into a room, everybody notices?
You can do it instantly. You can, like when I'm doing the workshops, I can show them how instantly they can switch that energetic presence on. So, that's something that we can all do. Yeah. if you're willing to just go there and experiment with it. But, it's not just, that's what I call the outer presence of ourselves. Like, what energy are we putting out there? How are we being seen in our body, in our voice, in our, our body language, our, the tone and that energetic presence. But what we also need is the inner presence, and the inner presence is going in and doing the work on any kind of, mental, or emotional or traumatic blocks that you might have, which are usually based on, past experience and things that have happened and just thoughts that we have in our head and things like that. So it's hard to put a time frame on it, because for some people can move very quickly, like super quickly, like I've had people do my Awaken Your Voice course, and they've been wanting to just, start singing again in their career or their life, for years. And then immediately, as soon as they finish, they just sign up and they're out there. And before you know it, they're on the stage, So, but for others, it's just a little bit more of a work in progress, so it just really depends. It depends on every situation is different, but
Yeah.
it can be really quick. If you can shift things, it can be quick.
I'd
Which makes
imagine
it
I'd imagine that kind of work is not way more rewarding, but like very, very almost touches you inside, I would imagine, when you're helping people like that, compared to, the performing side of it.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing it for, I've been helping people perform for like 25 years. So this just adds another layer to it. So it has been a long, long time. And it is really rewarding. I've worked with some fairly young up and coming artists as well. And they started with me when they were in their, teens, like they were, young teens, some of them, because they were, really amazing singers who we knew that something was going to happen, in their career. And then they've gone on to just become, now they're adults and they're working in the theater, or they're out there gigging, around town or whatever they're doing. And it is lovely to know that, I did help them in some way, and it's not just me. I mean, they would have had a lot of other mentors around them as well. But I think when we have our own gifts and talents, to be able to, it was a very natural thing for me to fall into a mentorship role too, because I do enjoy that, just helping other people see their full potential, and I think a lot of people need that these days. I think I think there's a lot of people out there and, holding themselves back in some way, with some really amazing, beautiful gifts and voices out there.
True. And something I've been dying to ask, it might not be your expertise entirely, but as a vocal coach, do you believe that there's such a thing as a person who just can't sing? They weren't born with a good voice, or can everybody become a good singer?
I often get asked this question. Look, there have been so few people who really, really struggled and couldn't sing. Like, I could probably name them on one hand, in all of these years, so I think somewhere internally there's something not aligned. It's not a listening thing. A lot of people think if you're if you're tone deaf or something like that, that you can't hear the music. Most of the time it's actually not that. It's an alignment of the musculature of the singing instrument.
Yeah.
And the whole thing. And so once people can actually learn how to control that and balance it, they learn to play this singing instrument just as they would learn to play the piano or the guitar or the drums, Once they actually learn the mechanics and learn how to control it, then suddenly this singing voice comes out, So I think people don't realize, some people don't realize that it is an instrument that needs to be practiced and and mastered, if it's not functioning properly, then you're not getting a great sound. You're limited. You're vocally limited. Your range might be limited. The tonal quality may be limited. Like all of those things. So yeah, anyway, that's a whole nother story. People that don't train their voices, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I think most people who want to sing, I think that they can find their way. Yeah.
I imagine it'd be like walking into a room and finding an old dusty guitar with rusty strings, and then you put new strings on and that guitar sounds great.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's like, what is great singing? Like it's such a subjective thing. It's some people, some of the greatest singer-songwriters are not necessarily the greatest voices in the world, but they touch the hearts and souls of millions of people around the world. And it's just, I think now I'm at the point where it's like, if you want to sing, just sing. Just sing. If you do it great, that's a bonus, especially if you want to do 8 shows a week or go on tour. You need vocal chops. You need to manage your voice, or you're going to end up with an injury or something, or just struggling. But if you're just singing because you enjoy it and it's something that you want to do, and every now and then you want to just book yourself into a gig or go and sing in your local church or something like that, or, jump up on the stage with some friends who have a band and sing 1 or 2 songs, just sing. I think we've got to get out of this mindset that singing is something that we have to try to achieve something with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just do what makes you happy.
Yeah. Do you agree?
Yeah, completely. Life is too short to be held back by any fears or anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And at this point in your life then, or this point in your career, what are some things that are left on your bucket list that you'd like to achieve?
Well, I am writing a book, so that was always something that I knew I wanted to do one day. So that should be hopefully released within the next, I don't know, six months or so. I'm not sure. I think I would just love to perform and travel overseas a little bit more. I did a little bit of traveling overseas, but not as much as I would have liked to. So I love traveling, and if I can build more performing into that, then that would be great. I'm writing some new music, so I haven't. Yeah, so I'm the last couple of years has been focused a little bit on that whole new coaching that I'm doing, but now I'm feeling that call for me to go back and really create again. And so I'm want to release some new music and just record a new album or something. So that's a work in progress. And so it's not so much bucket lists, I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know. Perform in beautiful concert halls around the world, maybe. I don't know.
It's not a bad one. It's not a bad one.
Yeah,
After
Broadway or the West End.
yeah. After a bit of a break away from it, then is it easy to get back into writing songs and coming up with ideas to put an album together?
No. It's super challenging because I'm so clear on who I am as a person now, and I refuse to let anyone put me in a box. And now I'm just so like, I'm just going to sing whatever I want to sing and trust that that's right for me, and that's there's an audience for me, and and I'm just going to put it out there, and I know that it's right. So there's such a with all that personal development work I've done, there's such a clarity on who I am. And I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I don't have to try to be who I'm not. I'm not even necessarily trying to make great commercial music that's, I'm trying not to fall in that trap either. I'm just like, if it's real, I just know in my soul that if I just write stuff that comes from a really deep creative place, that it can just be so powerful. You know? And I'm also just doing it because it's fun and it's joy, for me. And so that's enough for me, if no one ever heard it and I'm just doing it, for that, then so be it. But it's, I think, yeah, that's what's fun for me right now, just exploring it. But no, it's taken me a long time to break out of, like, who am I as an artist? Who am I? So it has been a bit of a struggle. But collaboration, I know that all I have to do is just reach out to other creatives who I'm aligned to, and it's amazing when you come together with people that you're drawn to, and some real spark of creativity can really start to happen. So that's where I'm heading at the moment, to make that creative block in me kind of find its place.
Brilliant, brilliant. I have to say, I love that mindset. It's I'm looking forward to seeing what you come out with now, I must say. And at this stage, so we'll dive into the last couple of questions, or else we could be chatting all night.
We could.
So if you could see any performer in history for one night only, who would it be?
Oh, Elvis Presley just came to me as soon as you said that.
Really?
Can you imagine? He was just so himself, so pushing himself to the edge, so soulful. Oh,
Totally captivating.
Can you imagine going back in time to be there? That would have just been incredible. The Beatles.
Yeah,
I don't know. All these old ones are coming up. Who else? Yeah, I think historically those times would have been amazing when these type of musicians were breaking the rules. Like now you don't stand out as much for breaking the rules. I think,
you're almost expected to.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to get attention to there's
stand
so
out.
much competitive. But imagine being a pioneer of a new wave of music like the Beatles. Yeah. I mean, imagine being a part of that. Aretha Franklin, those type of people that were the leaders in change in music. I think that would be,
it would be unreal. Yeah. And the next one then is a bit of a strange one. If you had to spend 24 hours locked inside a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
Interesting. So Prince came to my mind then. I'm just going with what's coming to my head as soon as you ask me. And I think the reason why is I think he was such a deep creative soul. And man, can you imagine the songs you could come out with if you could just sit and write with him?
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of a deep soul myself, so that came to my mind. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And the final one, so what song would appear on the soundtrack to your life?
What song would appear on the soundtrack of my life? I don't know. I think I'm going to write that song.
Brilliant answer.
Yeah. It's yet to be written. I think it has something along the lines of I did it. I made it. And, you spend your whole life trying to make it as an artist. And I really feel like I've already made it now because I just know who I am. And I feel so much freedom in just putting myself out there in whatever way I want, that in that way, that's enough. Like I did it. I got there. I know who I am and who I want to be. I'm not afraid for people to see it. I'm not afraid for people to not like it. It's like it's something along those lines. Thank you. You've just
Perfect.
inspired a new song for me to work on.
Brilliant.
You can get credit for that one on the album.
Oh, listen, Danielle, thanks a million. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. It's been great to get some insights into exactly what you do. Thanks a million.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great chatting with you too, and great, allowing me to reminisce so much. Thank you.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concerts that made us.com.